Updates. So I've been pretty busy on this bike. Weather's been a little bit hair going, so I've been kind of chasing between the patches of rain, making the most of it. But I've done a fair bit of riding on this thing with this CANE CREEK Kitsuma double barrel. So full adjustment. Just love the adjustment. So coil springs. I started with my Öhlins springs because that's kind of the lightest springs that I've got. The 343 was, it's this one here, 343, was a little bit stiff, definitely too stiff. Had me standing up, probably like 19 mil of sag, maybe 20 mil of sag, probably 19 mil of sag. Then I bought a 320 Öhlins spring. So, and I've been playing with spring rates. I've been comparing spring rates. So I've got the Trek just there as well, just out of camera. And I've got an e-bike just out of camera as well, which I've been just briefly playing with the last couple of days. And if we get a clear patch today, I'm heading out on that thing. So this is going to get a rest until I get the proper spring retainers to be able to safely run the RockShox spring on this coil. So I'll get to that more in a minute. But so the 320 Öhlins I put on, and the spring, Öhlins spring, feels like, so I've done runs on this RockShox 300 pound spring. The 350 was too tall. Öhlins 343 was too tall, kind of similar. So I think the Öhlins printed numbers are more or less on par with the RockShox printed numbers, but the Fox versus the Öhlins and the RockShox. So this 343 is probably the equivalent to a 375 Fox. But different. They say coils are linear. All coils are linear, but they're not. They all slightly have their own characteristic, as I'm finding. So this Öhlins feels like it's a little stiff off the top, a little bit hard to get into the travel, and then so it's kind of hard to get into the travel and then disappears. So it's hard to get in and then disappears a little bit. Not bad. It doesn't go. It doesn't drop away, but it's stiffer at the start than it is throughout. That's what it feels like to me. This RockShox 300 is softer off the top, like softer, easier to get into. But so it's more like that. So if I was to have a graph, let me draw a little graph. So if I was to draw a little graph of what the Öhlins looks like versus what the that's the Öhlins shot. So starts off rampy, but then nothing really there. And then you've got the RockShox, which starts off quite soft and ends up a little bit more resistance at the end. Not a lot. It just feels, these RockShox coils feel excellent. I guess what I'm getting at is, from the coils that I've used, I think even though these are heavier and bigger, they're the kind of biggest, ugliest coil out there. Similar to the CANE CREEK Volt, I guess, for weight. The Nuke Proof, same size, 38 internal diameter. I love this beauty, the red, but they feel the best. And I think maybe that's why RockShox Super Deluxes feel the best. Feel so good and feel so flawless and bumpless. So getting out and riding this bike, so as a kind of public service announcement as well, for anyone riding a Banshee Rune, this rear end, I'm not sure where, and I'm still trying to, I don't think I can make the bike functional, like fun functional, a capable rider at 15 to 18 mil sag. I really don't think I can. I've been up close to that, and it's just the higher up you get in the back, the worse it rides, the worse it handles. The front's under you and just tucking everywhere. The lower you go, the more this starts to feel like an enduro hitter, like an actual a charger. You can flex on this thing when it's low. but you can't do it where the recommended is. So I'm not sure where they get their recommendation from, whether it's just a different style of riding. But for me, I like confidence. I like a bike who sits into its travel, compliant, efficient climber, good climbing position, and just confident everywhere. Regardless of how steep or fast and flat it gets, doesn't matter. I can set it up for confidence. So 21 to 22 mil for steep trails, 21 mil for the flatter, faster trails, and a little bit of a tickle on the settings. So I guess, where am I going with this? Coil shocks, they're all different. They are all different. So these Öhlins ones, and I'm thinking the Öhlins almost match the style of the Öhlins shock. So like I said, with this Öhlins in previous videos, I found that I haven't got along with it, and it's got that top out. Now, this is the original shock. This Öhlins was a replacement for a Kitsuma that I got for the Trek. The Kitsuma was topping out. I had this, I'll show you what it is. Just to make it clear for everybody what I'm talking about. That. There's no deceleration of force at the top of the travel, which no other coils do it except for this. No other coils that I've tested. This, the Öhlins, and a blown DHX2 did it as well. And the DHX2s kind of a little bit have it ever so slightly faint if you run the rebound, the high speed rebound quite fast, but it's not like this. So every time you bunny hop, it's a click at the top, click, 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 click. Every time that back wheel leaves the ground, it clicks. So I don't like that. To show you what it should be like. So what it should be is that deceleration of force. There's no clunk. You don't feel the top. It just gets there. It just decelerates as it gets to the top. And that rebound's running way faster than that. I love this bike. I love this shock. I've got the Zeb back on. So I put the Öhlins back on this for a bit of bouncing around. I'll talk more about that in a sec. So yeah, I'm finding these RockShox coils are better. But to put them on a shock like this, or like the Marzocchi or a Fox shock, the Fox springs are quite good as well. The Fox springs have... So we got Öhlins, RockShox, and then the Fox. Let's start it over here. The Fox is more, I think, a little more ramp than either of the two. So Fox. I think the Fox has a little more ramp, a little more sporty than either of the two. This is sporty off the top, but then dies, the Öhlins. This is super plush downhill, you know, eat up everything off the top with adequate ramp and good room for preload. It doesn't get real stiff after like 2 turns of preload. You've still got more room there. Not that I'd run more than 2 turns of preload, I don't think, but RockShox on their shocks say you can run up to 5 turns of preload. But the Fox is just a little more, maybe a little more sporty. They will feel good, but the Öhlins is my least favourite spring so far that I've tested. Air versus coil on this bike. I was saying that I can get an air shock to run as supple as a coil. On reflection, that's bike specific. There's only certain bikes I can make an air shock feel that good. The design of this frame doesn't play well with an air shock. It's very, very strong mid-stroke and ramp up-ish. Very, very strong mid-stroke, let's say. And I have to run quite a light spring. So the same spring rate I run on this versus the Trek, I did this yesterday. So this 300 spring on the Trek is too soft. Absolutely too soft. But on this bike, it's soft enough. It's good. The 320 is a little stiff on this, but the 320, putting it on the Öhlins and putting it on the Trek, feels soft and feels nice. Like it feels like that's probably my spot. The 320 with a full turn of preload seems like it might be my spot on the Trek with this shock. So I'm going to go back and give this shock another shot. And at that rate, I actually had to run 8 clicks of low speed compression to have a good, to have my balance, to have a good a good platform to push against, and a good land, and a good energy out of the shot. And rebound 1 off of full fast. So full fast is just too much topping out, too much energy. 1 off of full fast is pretty good. So I'm not giving up on that other ones yet unless someone buys it. I've got it up for sale. If someone buys it, then it is what it is. But maybe I was just oversprung. It does still feel odd. Like it's very, when you take the spring off and compare it to this compressing and extending, the Marzocchi compressing and extending, this thing will compress. It's kind of hard to compress, not too bad. It's kind of hard to compress and feels like there's heaps of stiction in there. But then the rebound at full fast is so slow on this shaft. It's so slow versus either of these two. So, but air versus coil on this bike. The air shock, I worked and worked and worked and finally got it to where it was like, yeah, I could send this anywhere. It feels really, really good. I've gotten rid of 90% or 95% of the weaknesses that I was hunting to get rid of, that I was trying to get rid of. The too much force in the mid-stroke, whatnot. Enter this coil. First run, it was too oversprung. You've seen that in the video. Coming back to this, climbing killer, no worries, like not saggy or anything, just perfect climbing position, perfect cornering position, perfect sending position. And the bumps at the top of the trail that I was riding the day before, I didn't video this trail because it's more of a I guess you could call them secret trails, but lesser known trails, so I don't really want to blow them up. But the top of that trail, you come in and it's kind of bumpy into a sender and then it's just fast. And this bumpy section was good on the air shock versus what it was at the start. So it went from you know, boom, 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 hooking up on everything to really carrying speed across that and just feeling the bumps, but not hooking up on them. Now with this, I don't even feel the bumps. I don't even know they're there anymore. Like I couldn't show you where that rough bump was beforehand, just out of feel. I can walk up there and point it out, but I can't go, oh, that's right, it used to be there. Because this thing just goes, and it's almost silent. It's really, really good. The only thing I don't like about this shot, again, is that top out. High speed rebound is killer. Low speed rebound is killer. The adjustments are exactly where you want them. You've got ridiculous range and enough. It's not like, oh, one click is too far or not far enough. You can set it halfway between a click. The clicks are really close together anyway on the low speed rebound, so not a big deal. The high speed rebound is killer range. If you don't know how you play what you're doing playing with that, let's have a look where I am. I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of a possible 15. So 4 out from full open on that high speed rebound. And that's just what I found at that kind of setup. But it was definitely, it's not like, oh, you got heaps of dials, they don't really do much. They are perfect. And the fact that you can just tune it with your fingers is perfect. It's so good. I truly believe that if this is not hard to create and they can work out a way to get rid of that topping out, I think this is going to be the future for most shocks, having everything available. Maybe not the high speed rebound. A lot of people don't like to mess with that because it's a very, it's kind of a crucial setting. If you're governed by whatever the preset is on most shocks on that. But if you don't have a preset and you've got that adjustable, it's very easy to throw your entire setup out purely for that, from that being out of whack. So, which is, I guess it's the same for any setting, but that's one that's least understood. High speed compression is killer and it comes on strong. So if what am I on the high speed compression? Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 out. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11 out. Yep, so I'm 11 out from full closed on the high speed compression of a possible 15. And low speed compression and rebound, have a look. 5 out from closed of a possible 10. And the low speed rebound, I am 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. So there you go, there's my settings that I've found so far. And it is crucial to play with them. It is definitely crucial to play with them. And I like the feeling. I like how smooth this shock is. I like how smooth, it's still got the playfulness, the coil that I'm running, the actual RockShox coil that I'm running feels really good. I'd like to try a CANE CREEK coil on it as well. But I don't know if I'm willing to keep just throwing money at coils. You got no idea how many coils I've got. I think I've got like 13 or 14 different coils. So my idea behind collecting coils is I can rent these coils out to people, maybe 15 bucks a week. So that way it saves you guys buying a coil shop or the prohibitive process of buying, oh, do I get a coil? No, I don't know which coil to get. Like, should I go to the coil shop from an air? Nah, because then I've got to go different springs and whatever. I've got all the springs. Rent them off me for 15 bucks a week. I've only got 65mm stroke springs to suit a 65 to 67mm stroke bike. So that is one thing. But I've got almost every size in the Fox, or most sizes in the Fox, and a lot of sizes in the RockShox, and now a heap of sizes in the Olands. So hit me up if you need to borrow a spring instead of just buying one and blowing all your cash on the wrong spring rates, whatnot. But I think this RockShox is the spring. So I've got these nuke-proof spring retainer clips to... so this is supposed to be a 36mm diameter. So these retainers, the top and bottom retainers, are good for a 36mm internal diameter spring. And this is a 38mm internal diameter spring. So it doesn't sit as flush on the bottom. The top one seems like it's got heaps of bite on it, but the bottom doesn't seem like it's got as much bite on it. I can't see it blowing off, but it may. So I don't really want to risk it. So that's what it is. That's how it is. So once those things get here, and the other thing is once those nuke-proof things get here, I'll be good to go on this thing. But the other thing is I actually have to compress the spring a little bit to get the bottom clip back in. Like I just put a couple of zip ties on it, compress it with zip ties to get it in. So I'm not wrestling and trying to put the bottom clip in and potentially scratching the stanchion. So with the retainer clip that I get, I'm going to have to still do that and maybe even a little more compression. But once it's on at full extension again, there's room to bring this down, it's loose again, and I bring that preload collar down a bit. The preload collar on this shock is a little bit tight, regardless of where it is. On the Oland spring, when I bring it right down here, it's just super tight to get all the way down, so that's a consideration, I guess. The climb switch is killer. I never ever use climb switches, ever use climb switches. And this shock, I tried the climb switch and it feels killer. It feels really good. Like full on is very stiff, and middle is killer. It climbs wicked open. The bike, I always set my bikes up to climb really well and descend really well without messing around with a climb switch. I find if you find the sweet spot of descent, like the proper sag of descent, it'll climb wicked in that sag as well. If it's a little too stiff, it won't climb well there because I think it's maybe your anti-squat, you're just a little bit above where that perfect anti-squat is. This climb switch is killer. It's really good. Easy to reach and easy to find. Like it stands out when you reach down and not looking. It is killer. So I love this shock. I've got big love for this shock, but I do not like this top out. It's the only thing that puts me off on this shock. So like I said, I'm borrowing this shock, and massive shout out to you, Dave, for letting me borrow it. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I buy it or should I not? I'm not into the top out, but the performance is that I can maybe forego, maybe overlook it, maybe. But I just know that Super Deluxe is just going to be like there's no top out. It's going to probably be all of this, but no top out. So I don't know. I'm torn at the moment. Maybe I should keep this and give CANE CREEK a bit more love because it's killer. It's killer. We'll see. But yeah, night and day. This versus the AirShock is better. Is absolutely better on this bike. This bike just does not play that well with AirShocks. The X2, when I first demoed the orange one of this, didn't work that well. I couldn't find that there was always a compromise. Super Deluxe with the Magneg, not much better. Super Deluxe with the standard can, a little bit woody, a little bit dum dum dum. Good, but like you could charge, but just didn't feel supple. And then enter this Coil, just all day, and it's Coil. So I'm now considering putting the ACS3 from Push into my fork. Now the only reason I'm considering the ACS3 over the Vorsprung seems like it'll be a smoother option, but it's that weight. It's the weight of the Vorsprung, the heap of extra oil, the hydraulic bottom out, which I prefer. The hydraulic, I'd be running that minimal anyway, because when I used to run a Coil in my forks, I'd run it stiff, as I do with all my setups. You know how I run it. I run it stiffer with less progression, so that way it's efficient off the top without being choppy throughout. If I was to run it stiff off the top with progression, it'd be horrible to run. It'd be terrible. But I like that stiffer, more consistent spring feel out of the fork. So the hydraulic bottom out with the Vorsprung I don't think is super necessary for me. It might be. I don't know. It's purely theory right now. Purely theory. It might be It might be the best way to go. But that extra weight on the front, I don't think I'm ready for. I don't think I want it. So I'm going to go the ACS3. It's got a pneumatic top out, so it's bottom out. Sorry. Which I'm not really fond of. I'm trying to eliminate air. I'm trying to eliminate me having to put a shock pump on my bike. Me having to make sure my bike's feeling the way it felt yesterday. Or we got a cool change coming in. It was 30 degrees yesterday, and today's only going to be 23. So I've got to reset the pressure and whatever. Hence why I got a Coil at the back. This bike just pushes you to a Coil anyway because it doesn't work that well with an AirShock. So the ACS3, I think it adds about 350 grams, whereas the Smash Pot will add about 550 grams. So something like that. Those numbers might be a little bit off, but it's more or less what it is. So that's where I'm at. If you got this bike, 21 mil sag at the back, 21 to 22 mil sag, 23 is too deep, you'll be slapping pedals on stuff and you'll be probably bottoming it like an MF. 19 mil, you'll just be standing over it and braking for the corners instead of slapping them. So, 21 mil, she's a party animal. Coil in the fork, come on, let's do it. Maybe I'll put the B1 in briefly first because I did talk about it. One of you guys asked me about it, Sisu Fitness. I think it's Sisu Fitness. Asked me about the Coil, and I said to him, yeah, I'd lean the Vorsprung, but then I changed, and I'm leaning ACS3. So, what do you reckon? Put the ACS3 in for sure, or just wait? And maybe B1, maybe just quickly a B1 test before I do the ACS3. So that way I know what's the best and then what's next. But this C1, definitely no token. Definitely no token. You could probably run a token as well, but definitely no token. 92 PSI, clicker high speed compression, 4 to 6 of low speed compression, rebound party, and it's killer. And this Coil has made the fork feel much more composed as well because of the feedback that was coming from the AirShock, like seesawing back into the fork maybe. Enough rambling. I'm going to ride this e-bike. It's I was going to put it on camera, but I've probably blown too much of your time already. It's a 2020 Norco Range C1 big dog battery, 170 rear, 180 front, Lyric at 180 Lyric at the front and a Super Deluxe at the rear. So I got a 350 spring on it for 32% sag. That thing's ready to party. Let's get out of here.